Hey guys, hope everything is going well. Today is a live stream with some of my buddies from over a decade ago, or that I've known for over a decade, and we've had them on before on this program. Anyways, John from the J22 Report, that's your new YouTube channel, right? And the sports?
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. I haven't been on it in a while. Part of it's just work and recovering from an injury and whatnot. So, but yeah, that's my. Hopefully, I'll start doing videos soon. But yeah, that's my new J22 Sports Report or Sports and Entertainment. So.
Okay, sounds good. And Don, you going by a different handle today?
Sure.
So where can people find you before we start?
Down at the homeless shelter, generally.
Very funny. Okay, so the topic on many people's minds, and the reason why I wanted these two guys is I've known them for over a decade, and we've seen a bunch of what I like to call hanky-panky in sports cars, but we witnessed the hanky-panky in the gold and silver landscape over a decade ago. And I want to tie it to what they saw versus what I'm seeing today a little more closely. So just for people that haven't been following what's been going on the past few weeks, the backyard breaks, I call them the backyard bros. Well, they've been getting all of these hits in these breaks. And the probability of them getting it based on the math that I've seen thus far is potentially 1 in 100,000 hits. And that's very low probability to get 3 or 4 amazing cards. Now, Don, you have played around in sports cards and also the commodities market. What are your thoughts when you hear this, just not even knowing that much, but you have seen a lot of fraud throughout your career and in the hobby in general?
Well, Rahul, first of all, thanks for having me here. I appreciate you having me back on your channel. I've got nothing to sell or shill, so it's always a pleasure to be here. The likelihood of getting the cards that you've described is probably about as likely as winning 81 million votes in the 2020 election, and having all of the the polling stations shutting down at about 11 p.m. Eastern time in key swing states, and then reopening at about 4 in the morning, with 100,000 swing votes all going for one candidate in exactly the same direction. So I think that statistically, probably not likely.
Okay, I'm pretty sure I'm going to get kicked off of YouTube for this. All jokes aside, John, when you hear this, we could look at it from a different perspective. Both you and me, we do not believe the media in general. And I told you this before, I've seen the establishment of the hobby, or who I deem to be the establishment of the hobby. There was, I think, also people involved in the hobby in general. I could maybe refine that statement. Maybe someone like C. Blez, maybe like the card ladder guys from what I'm gathering, maybe even card porn. So it seems that people that may have a vested interest in the hobby are saying, nah, there's nothing going, it's probably nothing going on. Me, who has an independent voice, I'm saying like, look, this doesn't seem right. The sports card radio brothers, they tend probably to agree with me. And the card man, another dude that I like on YouTube, he probably doesn't agree with it either. So what are your thoughts on all of this? Just looking at it from an outside perspective, and this is why I wanted to have you guys on, John.
Is this from the breaker's perspective or just sports card hanky-panky?
Just hanky-panky, and then you could also tie in, how we don't agree with the establishment in general, outside of sports cards, outside of gold and silver. And I just told you examples of how the establishment of sports cards, they don't think any hanky panky is going on?
Well, I mean, of course they're not going to say any hanky panky's going on because they run it. So no one's ever like, oh yeah, we're just like cheating. We're completely this is really an MS8, but we'll put it as MS10 or MS13. The highest grade, I think, or in the coin business, the highest grade is MS70, but it's really MS66. Like, they're never going to say that. So, of course, they're never going to say it's going on. But the one thing, the story that was telling me in Sports Card was the stain on the card. And all you need to know is that hanky panky's going on is, think of someone selling rare fine china. If it had a stain on it and someone wiped it off, would you really think it's still as good or still valuable? And the answer is no. Even just the scrubbing alone will devalue it or degrade it over time, and the stain will devalue the china over time. So the fact that it had a stain on it shows it should not be allowed in perfect condition. So you don't really need any more evidence than that one story that they said. It wasn't even like after a huge public outcry, they're like, all right, you know what, this will be graded less. We were wrong. They just outright were like, no, this is fine. We don't really care what you say. And just think of it with any other product, China or coin business. Now, I think in terms of like when I was with gold and silver, like the coin industry, I think was much better. But part of it too was you're dealing with a lot of older coins, and there wasn't too much interest. It wasn't big. Like sports cards is huge, so you're dealing with sort of like autistic nerds when you're dealing with like Roman coins, and when I was in sort of the rare collectible coins. So when anything gets big, where it's coins, markets, look at financial earnings. How many times are those really manufactured? So yeah, that's just it. Part of it's the nature of markets, fraud, and fraud is generally a sign of a top. And I'll just say the best example is Bernie Madoff. He had the money spigot going. Once it was shut off, then they got caught. So
great points. I do want to address the Bernie Madoff situation, but so for those that don't remember what John was alluding to earlier on, and then I'll go back to Don. So we had this Herbert card. We weren't sure whether if it were a stain or if it were a fingerprint. I thought it was a stain. Some people are saying fingerprint. And what John was saying was that in the gold, silver, bullion hobby, it's a no-no using chemicals to wipe down coins. And in the card hobby, it's a gray area. In comic books, it's accepted. So, Don, you do have some understanding about cleaning and whatnot. What are your thoughts when people are potentially using chemicals to wipe down cards? And we're not talking about a microfiber cloth to remove dust, which the CEO of Collectors, or one of the lead guys at Collectors, told me that it's fine using a microfiber cloth to remove dust. He said that's fine, but any chemicals is a dry area. But then they own PCGS. In PCGS, you can't do that. Now, they do have a conservation service, which is different. Now, that grade, if you use their conservation service, it's not going to be the highest grade out there. It's going to be determined as cleaned or altered, from my understanding. So what are your thoughts on that, Don?
Can I answer that indirectly?
Yeah, sure.
Sports cards is the dumbest of the dumb money. You have the largest group of people who have no idea what they're doing when it comes to investing. In the most unregulated investing space I've ever seen. I mean, NFTs, cryptocurrencies are also bad. But sports cards are populated by a large number of people who are under the age of 10, and also by men over the age of 40 who continue to think and act like they're under the age of 10, none of whom have any idea what they're doing. So imagine that you're in that pool and you realize that they've all been handed stimulus checks and trillions of dollars of money to blow on stuff they don't need, and you have the ability to take something with a perceived value because it's some guy throwing a ball, and you know how to manipulate the system and clean that card, and you know that there's a pool of people out there, grown men who will wear a jersey with a grown man's name on the back and fight each other while drinking a Pabst in one hand and a hot dog in the other in a stadium somewhere. Those people don't really have any idea what they're doing in investing. But if you pull that card out and say it's one of one, and it's in whatever mint pristine condition, someone's going to bid it up in an unregulated space like sports cards, populated by 10-year-olds and grown men who act like 10-year-olds.
But the counter argument is, okay, it's an unregulated market. I mean, look at Wall Street. That's an unregulated market, and there's a lot of hanky-panky going on. So what's the difference? Like regulated, unregulated?
Wait, hold on. You said Wall Street is regulated or unregulated?
It's technically regulated, but we know how it works. But people will say
here's the difference. On Wall Street, you've got things like dark pools of liquidity. That's real. And you really don't ever know which market maker is trading against you, and that's true. But you go into it with a set of rules where everybody knows that someone's going to get the shaft. Now, I want to give you a story, if you don't mind, that I was told by someone in my family who was in Vietnam. He went to Vietnam, and then he was in maybe Japan or Korea or somewhere before he went off into actually combat. And they had like a couple of weeks waiting around. And he went to go see a woman who would provide for him a massage with a happy ending. Now, as the massage moved forward, it got to the point where the happy ending would begin. And that's when the woman, who had fingernails about 4 inches long and very sharp, put the fingernails around the part of the male anatomy that you would least like to lose in a happy ending. And she said, quote, "Now we talk about money." So with Wall Street, it is understood that in every transaction, you've got someone on their knees in front of you, servicing you in some way, and you're happy about that. But you're always with absolute certainty, with the knowledge that those fingernails can come out and you will eventually talk about money. With sports cards, there's not that perception that people have. With sports cards, it's personalities and it's people smiling and having a good time and playing a game. And the level of understanding of even those basics of investing does not exist in most sports cards minds, collectors' minds. So yes, there's rigging in the markets everywhere, but sports card collector doesn't yet know they're getting shafted. There's a difference. If you step into a Wall Street casino, you know they're going to bend you over. And if you've seen the movie Full Metal Jacket, you know the scene where the drill sergeant says, "Private Pyle, if you're going to be bending me over, at the very least, give me a reach around." Well, that's Wall Street. However, with sports card collecting, people aren't getting the reach around, except they're too dumb to know that they should have wanted one in the first place.
That was great. So the thing is that Don talked about investing and how most 40-year-olds don't know how to invest in sports cards. And the thing is that both of you last year, you could talk about 1.5 years ago, both had spotted the bubble. And John, especially, what I find interesting is you didn't speculate too much in sports cards. You don't follow that market, but you were able to detect it, while a lot of people on YouTube did not understand that. So how did you figure that bubble out? 1.5 years later, your thought process was correct. How did you figure out that was a bubble, while you could say that a lot of the pundits on YouTube regarding sports cards didn't know what was going on?
I would say a couple of things. One was I saw cards of athletes I've never heard of going up to 100 or $125 per card, and Oh, wait, are you pointing at me or the
No,
chat?
I don't want to interrupt you because you're telling the truth there. That's right. Yes.
Oh, okay, all right, all right. I didn't know if you were pointing
Yeah,
to
I
No,
don't know who you're pointing at.
no, I
Linda
was
or
saying
me. I was like,
good.
oh, okay,
Yeah.
I'll go back. Like Sam Vincent's card was like $150 at one point, or 450. You saw, and you saw these rookies who had no 1 year experience with astronomical valuations. They're already pricing in a Hall of Fame career. And I like non-money speaking. I like speculating, taking. I mean, I don't do it anymore because I don't have the time to research. But I used to take rookies and see how they were doing as a kid, and would try to speculate to see how good of a GM I am. But I never would price in like uh, when I was a Redskins fan. Now I'm
A Commanders fan?
that team. No, the team's just a joke. It's not even. I was
They beat
talking.
the Bears
I
last
mean,
week.
yeah,
That
but
was a horrible game.
yeah, your quarterback's horrible. I could have quarterbacked that team for a scoring drive against the Redskins. But anyway, going back, they were pricing these rookies in for Hall of Fame valuations. Justin Herbert's cards, I remember, were like six figures, and it was like a rookie card. I remember,
Two
like,
sold for over $1 million, by the way.
yeah, and I remember a Mickey Mantle card as a kid. It was like $100,000. So I just saw these
Sold for 12 million bucks, I believe, or a little over that.
yeah, astronomical, and of course there was some, and so that's the first main reason I saw. Just anytime something gets bid up to astronomical levels, where it's the tulips, with the tulip medium, where tulips can buy a house, and some of these sports cars actually you could buy a house with. It's ironic. It's not like the 5-ounce silver story where 5 bars up. Maybe they would have been right if they said like a LeBron James card you could buy a house with. So I mean,
Can I add something?
yeah, sure.
I mean, everything you said is exactly right. But there was another tell in terms of players. It's when I saw, again, I use the term grown men loosely here. It's when I saw grown men fighting over Simone Biles gymnastics cards. It's when I saw pro bowling cards graded PSA anything, pro bowling cards. When I saw darts and fencing and horse racing and anything, that before no one even knew existed, you had to know there's something going on here. This isn't normal.
Rahul, you bought a Simone Biles card. Did you start that fight? Did you?
No,
That
I
year?
did not fight over Simone Biles cards. I was just buying in
No, I
when
meant you
this.
were selling the card, and everyone.
Yeah, I was selling the
Oh,
card. I was buying when things were quiet, when people were saying, "Well, why would you buy Simone Biles cards?" Right?
see what you did. You
And
sold the card. They wouldn't have fallen. I'm just kidding.
I mean, I made money on the Biles cards. I think I have a few like SI for kids cards still, but
Yeah, but Rahul, let me ask you a question about that. Like,
yeah,
and this is a moral dilemma that I have about sports cards, but also about capitalism. I mean,
okay,
as I've gotten older, I've started to rethink some of the things I've believed about capitalism.
yeah,
It really comes down to information. So you were buying Simone Biles cards not because of any inherent value, but because you believed that there'd be someone just dumb enough to pay you some amount of money, exorbitant amount of money for a Simone Biles card. Now, is that the same thing as investing? What do we call that? I mean, it almost feels dirty to me to realize that you can pick something up and flip something like that because you know for a fact the decision they're about to make is a bad one. Now, listen, to give you an example, there's a lot of games you play, like backgammon, for example, where when you play the game, if your opponent makes a bad play, you let them know they made a bad play. A lot of chess players do the same thing. It feels sometimes a little, just a little dirty to be doing that. So I'm just curious what your take is on that.
So at that time, you have to remember we were locked in at home. We didn't know when the pandemic would technically end. So you had all this easy money. I'm thinking, okay, eventually this house of cards is going to come down. I was buying way on the cheap, by the way. I had to pay. I still had to pay not a premium, maybe like $70 for an autographed card of Biles in it was guaranteed by BGS, or BGS authenticated it. So it's not like I paid $5, for instance. So I still had to pay an amount, and I was thinking, okay,
Wait, hold on. Wait, how much did you pay for that?
how much did I make off of that?
No.
I don't remember off the top of my head. I think I sold it at least for 100.
No, but how much did you pay for it?
How much did I pay for it? I think I paid maybe $70 for an autographed ungraded card.
Okay, I got you. All right.
So it's not like I paid $5 and I made off the bank. There were people that had the same card as I had, I believe, and towards the peak, they were trying to get $13,000. This is before Biles had some people say a mental lapse. What, John?
Mental health breakdown.
Yeah, or whatever you want to call it. She had that, and before that, it was going for about $13,000. That's what someone wanted for. And the crazy part during the bubble, I saw Michael Phelps swimming cards raw. These were base cards, $2, and it like 2 months later, people were buying them for $35. That's how insane it got.
Hey, Rahul, listen, check this out. Look at this. You see this? You see these?
Serena.
Check this out. I've got literally cases of these. These are the Venus Williams cards, but the Venuses and Serena Williams cards, the Net Pros from 2000 and whatever. And nobody wanted my Serena Williams or Venus Williams or Andy Roddick's rookies for nearly 20 years. And overnight, they went from, I literally couldn't sell them at a dime a piece. They went to $5, $10, $15, $20 a card. It was insane. And so, to what John was talking about earlier, it's not just the players, these rookies that were, no one's ever heard of. It's not just the sports that no one ever collected. And by the way, there's a reason why you can't find pro bowling cards anywhere. Not because they're rare and collectors are hoarding them. It's because no one ever wanted them. So to John's point, when you look at the prices of these things, that was the tell. And you don't always know a bubble in advance, but you have to be able to know a bubble when the prices were spiking the way that they were. I mean, when you go from a Venus Williams card that you can't give away for a dime, and you do an eBay. I did an auction. And I told you about this, Rahul, and no one's ever heard the story but you. Boxes I bought of these Net Pro cards, I bought from the company for $2 a box. Listen, I sold them for $75 a box. And I thought I was hitting a home run. I had cases of these things. Within 1 month, those very boxes, no kidding, those very boxes went to $900 a box. Now, they're back down to like $50 a box or whatever. If you don't see the spike like that and at least realize it's time to step out of the way, I don't know what to tell you. That's the definition of the bubble.
Yeah, no one wanted these cards earlier, and now people just want them now that Serena Williams is retired now. And her SI for cards, I remember that they were hot during the pandemic. Do you remember that, Don?
Dude, I hate to keep saying this, but what kind of dorks are taking SI for kids and taking those crappy perforated cards and having them graded? I can't. Why not just get? What was that magazine for? It was that magazine when we were in the insert in newspapers when we were a kid. What the heck was the name of that magazine? We were kids.
Sports Illustrated for kids?
No, the other one. There's some other magazine for kids. My wife could probably remember. It's just embarrassing. I mean, when you're doing that. I mean, there's some new tennis player. I forget her name. There's some new tennis phenom that I saw the other day at Yahoo, and to show you how sick this is, some chick's name appears on Yahoo. It's just some new tennis player chick. And I go to eBay, and all of a sudden, overnight, her cards are going from like $2 or $3 and just bidding up $150 just because she appeared in the news. So, I don't know. It's embarrassing. I'm sorry, Rahul. I'm frustrated.
Yeah, let me come back in a minute. You guys could chat. I have to just close this one door where I hear a lot of noise.
Actually, speaking of the news, I remember people buying Magic Johnson's card just because new HBO series would come out, and they were hoping to flip it when Winning Time came out. That's a great show, by the way, but I mean, you don't invest on the show coming out. Like that's
I dumped all of my Michael Jordan cards when that documentary came out.
The Last Dance?
Yep.
That was still early technically, because if you remember, the top was, I think, March of 2021. You know what was the crazy part? I think we did a video March 1st, 2021, Don. And John, I think we did some videos in February of 2021. We barely got views, John, by the way. We had maybe like 200 views. And the video I had with you, Don, was maybe like 1,400, 1,500 views. And I just like reposted that the other day. And that was the ultimate top for Jordan. And you told me if I had a way to short sports cards, that would be the time.
Right.
And I noticed here on YouTube, everyone was just bullish. They said, oh, it's going to go up. Like people were saying, that, hey, this Pokemon card is going to go to $1 million or something like that. And then now all the guys that were bullish, that were talking about investing, now they're talking about collecting. Now they're very bearish. And now I'm thinking, wait, I'm not 100% bullish like I was a couple of years ago, but I'm looking at deals right now where I'm getting cards, no lie, $3 shipped to my home in a graded slab, $4, $5. And, I'm trying to look for deals like that, weak auctions right now.
Yep.
And I think, go ahead.
Well, what I was going to say is, therein lies another problem with this market, and the reason why the bubble is so hot. Both of y'all as investors know that shorting a market allows a market to have a lid on it. Like the Chinese stock market, they don't have shorting. So their market goes up and it comes down, it crashes all the time, it's crazy. And so short selling actually keeps things in check. Well, in the sports card market, there's not really a way to short the market. So in other words, there's just one direction. It's either going to be up, 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 or down, down, down. And the magazine I'm thinking of is Highlights for Kids. Highlights for Children, I think.
Is it SI for Kids?
No, it's Highlights.
Okay.
I don't know. But anyway, to your point about shorting the market, there's not a functional way to short the sports card market. Another thing is the spreads. To be technical here, the spreads between the bid and the ask on some of these cards is totally insane. You would never, ever think about investing in something that was, like gold, silver, or stocks or whatever, where you'd have spreads where you'd buy something for $10, expecting to sell it for $20, sometimes the very same day. That is totally out of proportion with reality. And one last thing about the liquidity of the market. These people that are buying and selling right now, sports cards, they don't understand just how unrare what they have may be, or even the rare cards, how few buyers there are. If you bought, for example, a Mac Jones card last year, any of those expensive Mac Jones, like, man, I've got it, man. This guy is the next Tom Brady, and there were cards priced like that. Mac Jones is not even the next Zach Holiday or whatever that backup quarterback's name is. So the speculation and the spreads and all that in sports cards really make it untouchable for an investor, except, Rahul, to your point, when the grown men who said they were going to double their money can't lose, when those grown men are having garage sales that they're posting on Facebook and Craigslist, where they've got their 5,000 count boxes that are separated by team or by player or by sport or by year, and they've got boxes stacked up, the same boxes that right now on Facebook they're dancing around and smiling in front of and having all those break parties. Well, when they've got those boxes at the garage sales, the same way they got the 1990 tops at garage sales right now, then you'll know it's time to dive back in. But by that time, everything will be an NFT, and it won't make any difference anyway.
Exactly. I mean, if the Fed reverses course, I mean, there could be maybe a small opportunity to jump back in, and we don't even need to look at the Fed, but a lot of bearish sentiment, as Don was alluding, and that's why I'm dipping my toes back in. I'd be a little more aggressive, but I have other expenses to deal with right now. But going back a decade ago, I know, John, you used to work in the silver industry. And the reason why I bring this up is because what I noticed in sports card, as I mentioned, the establishment wants you to buy all the time. If you're collecting, fine. But if you are speculating, right, you have to be very precise when entering in. And John, can you tell me some stories you remember from back in the day where they were spreading BS stories? We all fell for it, like me and you did. Don was older and wiser, but we fell for it. But then you saw on the inside they're full of crap. And the thing is, we learned that, okay, there's a better time to buy and a better time to sell. So, John, give me your story on what happened at one of the firms that you worked at.
Well, there was a bunch of stories, but my firm wasn't too bad in this. But one thing I can definitely confirm is a lot of these people in the industry. One of them, they sold all their silver at $35, and now it went up to $50. But they were telling people to buy. And there was this one storage program. I'm not going to say who it is because I don't want to reveal the name of the company and I wasn't there at the time, but they always told me they used to have free silver storage because this was an actual mint, and the storage got so filled up that they had to start charging. So one of their things to get people to buy at the top was they said, this is the last night for free storage. So buy it now, or you're going to start charging. You'll be starting to have to pay an annual fee. And so that was one story. Obviously, the most famous one was where they said, basically they were going to say the Fed's going to continuously print. They're never going to stop. They're never going to stop. And the reality is the Fed, like any organization, is political, and they have to sort of keep the perception that they're in control. So they are going to stop, and they are going to take breaks, and they will go through interest hike cycles, even if they don't want to, but they'll have to do it as perception. So there was a lot of stories from the inside. They would have a lot of product things like confiscation was one of them, where they would sell rare collectible coins, highest graded, and there's these coins. They were St. Gaudens and and $2.50 Indians. Now, a lot of companies would sell these, and what happened was in '33. Long story short, Franklin Roosevelt signed an executive order to turn in your gold. No one was arrested for it. No one really had the government. Government didn't come down to people's doors and take it. But they didn't tell them that part. They just said they had an executive order and took away your gold. But it was done on a voluntary basis. But anyway, those were only 2 gold coins that survived. So they started telling people that those were non-confiscatable, and they had markups 50 to 60%. So if the gold price went up 50 or 60%, they were breaking even. And 50, 60%. So, I mean, there was all sorts of
Hanky panky.
Yeah, hanky panky going on in terms of the collectible markets. And those coins that I told about, they sell close to spot now. And they were exploding in value from 2002 to 2006. And then they're like, oh, these are non-confiscatable. They can mark them up. So those are some of the stories right off the top of my head that I can think of that really are industry, I guess, sort of inside.
Yeah, good points, Don. What are what do you remember from over a decade ago when the industry wanted you to buy all the time? And I think you could bring up a few examples.
Well, it's the same in any industry. When the best, I mean, I could give you lots of stories, but the best thing I would tell people is this. If you go to, let's say, a card shop, and there's some kid standing there and getting ready to plunk down some money. I'm sorry, I mean worthless fiat, excuse me. Some worthless fiat for some card. And that kid says, this is a great card. You should buy this card as an investment. The first thing you have to think about is if you've got the guy cutting your grass and the guy waiting on your table and the guy driving the cab and your next door neighbor's kid's best friend who just got out of juvie met you down at the card shop and you saw him out vaping in the alley before. If that's the guy telling you how to invest your money, you're probably not in the right space. But when it came to the silver and gold thing, in terms of stories of 10 years ago, I would just tell people this. If you go someplace and the guy behind the counter says what you're about to buy from him is the single greatest investment of all time, is the rarest commodity that's ever existed, and you should give him your cash, again, worthless fiat, give him as much of your worthless fiat for that thing. Someone in that transaction isn't thinking clear, because either he's lying to you or he's an idiot. Now, I suspect that the people that gave the retailer the silver and took worthless fiat for the silver they gave the retailer, and they're not idiots because the wholesalers that gave it to them aren't idiots, and the mints weren't idiots, and the miners weren't idiots, and the banks that own all of it, they're not idiots either. So you come all the way down that chain, and what you find out is the guy at the counter who's buying this can't miss investment, he has to pit his investing knowledge, his acumen, his 15 minutes of experience, again, talking to the kid in the alley out back. He has to put all of that against a string of people, at the top of which are the bankers, when he's making his decision about buying this thing that's super rare that he's going to make money on. It's the same in sports cards. Of course, the difference in sports cards is you don't really know how many sports cards are being printed. You have no idea how many autographs are floating around out there. And the companies that are putting these things out, back to the point you want to make originally, like the Paninis and all that, they now know they have influencers, which, by the way, if you're getting advice from someone who calls himself an influencer, then you, by definition, are an idiot. You're a moron if that's who you're following. But they're going to these influencers and allowing them to just mysteriously open up product. And, oh, my goodness, look at this. Look at all these fantastic cards. And you have no idea the chicanery behind the scenes. And yet people believe they're watching something that's giving them some investing advice. It's all unregulated. And if you want a real analogy, pick up your phone. Pick up your smartphone and watch enough YouTube videos, and you'll see some of these ads that are these like slot machine ads where the people come trotting out and they say, does your slot machine give you 10 million coins 5 or 6 times a day? Have you seen these ads? Well, that's what sports card collector thinks when they see these influencers pulling these cards out that, like you were saying, Rahul, and John was talking about, the odds of finding are almost impossible. All of this is more rigged, it's more phony, it's more fake, it's more garbage, full of more liars and more snake oil salesmen than anything else you've ever seen. And again, if you're looking around a room full of guys, and these are guys who live in their mom's basement and at least as old as you or older, and they're telling you to buy this card to make some money, well, you're in the wrong industry. You should leave immediately because you're an idiot. If you don't know they're idiots, you're an idiot.
So the thing is, you made some good point. And I noticed there's this one guy, he's called Sports Card Investor, Jeff Wilson. I believe he watches some of my videos. And he was at the national show, I think in Jersey. And he bought the Star 84 Jordan rookie, if you want to call it the rookie, in a PSA 8 holder. Now PSA grades those cards. And the guy selling to Jeff Wilson said that, oh, without a shadow of a doubt, this is going to sell more than the Fleer 86 PSA 10 next year at the National. When I see someone,
Yeah, right. If someone says that to you, I mean, I know John won't name names. I'll name names. If Mike Maloney tells you that silver is going to quadrillions of an ounce, if that's what Mike Maloney tells you, then why does he have a sign outside of his shop that says, I'm only buying? All that I'm doing is buying. I refuse to sell. In fact, whatever spot price is, I'll give you more. So if some dealer tells you this car next year is going to triple your money, what kind of rube do you have to be to believe him? Either he is an idiot or he is a liar. And in neither case should you be taking advice from him.
yeah, I find it quite interesting that the industry promotes people that, and this is not no disrespect to Jeff or Card Ladder or any of the other businesses out there, but all I see is that, hey, like, you should be buying, right? And negativity is bad. And there's other people, pointing the finger at me and other people saying that, hey, if you are objective, which I try to be as objective as I can, that's bad for the hobby.
But
I don't know.
Rahul.
Well, I was going to say one thing about the retailers. Don, I think you're overestimating their intelligence. I know some of them that had programs where they had storage programs and they invested their own money in them, and they did an audit about 6 months later. Nothing was there in the storage program. They took everything and ran. It was in South America. So,
well, I'm not arguing that
they make the dumbest mistakes, like with their own personal things.
I'm not arguing that they don't make mistakes in their greed and their grifting and their graft and their avarice. I'm not making that argument. I'm saying in the specific case where a dealer says to you,
"Oh, I was just joking, though. I said it jokingly. I know what you meant."
Okay, because and Rahul, I want to say something else, Rahul, real quick. Anyone that says it's negative to sell, you'll notice something fascinating about these people. They're saying it's negative to sell and that you should buy, which by definition means you have to buy from somebody, which means somebody has to sell, and it's always the person telling you you're negative if you're trying to sell. They're trying to sell to you. It blows my mind. It's like people don't stop and think for a moment that the people telling me this are the ones who are reaching into my pocket. That's the part I don't get. Why people don't think about that.
Well,
yeah, and all of these guys I've noticed that you could call are mainly investors. Yes, they do collect as well. They're highly talking about investing. Now they're focusing on the collectors while the market's down. While the market was at a high, it's all about investing. So I'm thinking, okay, from a contrary point of view, like maybe this is a better time to speculate. I'm not telling what someone else to do. I remember telling people what to do with their own money. I'm just thinking out loud. And it's just quite interesting. And then some of the people coming after me saying that, hey, I'm bad for the hobby, or people like us are bad for the hobby because we're telling people, hey, there's times to buy, good times to buy, and good times to sell.
Yeah, get me on a show with one of those. I'd love to debate one of those people.
Some of these guys won't come on my program. I've been going back and forth video, YouTube, and all that, but they won't even debate me. They're just calling me troll, or I'm a troll, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, but John worked at a silver and gold retailer, and he knows from the inside why those guys will never debate you. He knows exactly why. It's the same thing in every industry. I had death threats, as you know, Rahul. I had people in the industry. I had one guy who goes by the name of Ranting Andy. Ranting Andy sent me an email saying he was going to come beat my ass. Which, by the way, I actually when I got that, I thought, well, is this a chance for me to become a YouTube viral silver stacking star? Because I'd love for Ranting Andy to try to come beat my ass. But he actually sent me an email saying that. These guys are all cowards. They talk about how if you sell, or you talk about it, you're a bad person. They demonize you. But at the same time, that's all they're doing is selling. That's their whole MO. It's nothing but selling. These guys, you know what, Rahul? It's Bitcoiner, it's Silver Stacker, it's Gold Bug, it's all these guys. You want to know the truth? Everyone watching me, go get the movie Survivors with Robin Williams and Walter Matthau. Watch the movie with Jerry Reed, Survivors, Walter Matthau, Jerry Reed, and Robin Williams. Watch that movie, get to the very end of the movie, watch the last 10 minutes, and then forget what they're talking about in that movie and make it panini. Make it Tops or Upper Deck or Beanie Babies or whatever. It's all the same. These people are disgusting.
Well, yeah, that's one thing that happened is like with speaking of Bitcoiner, Ranting Andy was one of those guys. He told everyone silver to buy at 50. It crashed to 18, and then he switched to Bitcoin.
That's right.
And he kept going, and I'm assuming he's out of business because I don't even know where he is. But all he did was tell you to buy, and if he saw an easy way out, he would do it, and that's what he did. And he would always. He didn't just attack, like he attacked Jordan Royburn for saying there could be a correction in metals in 2013 or 14. And then much to Jordan Royburn responded and Ranting Andy didn't know what to do. And I was like, yeah, what a jerk for doing it. And Jordan's like, well, ironically, I ended up getting more business because no one can stand them now. So
yeah, but you're being too kind to the industry. It wasn't just Ranting Andy. I know you know other people. As soon as gold and silver crashed, almost all the silver stackers became Bitcoiners. Let's keep it real. They jumped ship. And what was interesting to me in watching that whole process was a lot of the folks that were silver stackers who said they would never touch cryptocurrency became the biggest Bitcoiners. All of them.
Yeah, it was like my company when gold and silver crashed. They wanted to sell like rare collectibles and whatnot, and I was like, this is just so dumb. That's basically like shortly after I left. I was like, I'm not selling this crap. I didn't sign up for this. So then I eventually switched careers. So it was sort of
there you go.
Yeah, they all switched. Like they all. And if a company still sold precious metals, it was more of a side sale. It was not their main.
Listen,
they didn't even tell you to buy gold after it crashed. It was gold then returned to 2000, and now it's like 1680 or something.
Here's the thing about gold and silver, and Rahul, I don't want to keep this about gold and silver. I don't want to make this the me show, but I got to say this: if you think gold and silver are rare, it's not rare when you can get Superman, Scooby-Doo, Spider-Man, and Casper the Ghost on a silver coin. I'm sorry, it's not rare. It's just not rare. And if you can go to Osborne Coins, or you can go to Golden State Mint, or you can call up Chris Dwayne and ask him to get a profile of your pregnant wife and put it on a coin on one side and Santa Claus on the other. It is just not rare. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, going back to Ranting Andy, and I remember he used to like flip out when I used to interview him, when I used to give him a counter argument. And it seems like the same thing is going on with sports cards. You give them a counter argument, they like flip out. It like every media thing that I see, it's so controlled. In a way, it's fake to a certain extent. Not all of it.
But you're taking money away from them. You see, if you educate the morons who keep giving them money, then that's money they're not going to get. See, you have integrity. Your audience watches you for your integrity. But Rahul, I hate to tell you this, you're not going to get rich with integrity. Now, you might get rich shaking people down and being a carnival barker, and that might work for you. But then a carnival barker, once he's found out, well, he loses his source of income. When you have no skills except convincing people to give you money that they really don't have, to take something from you that they darn sure don't need at the prices you're selling them at, if that's your skill, and someone like you comes along, you're dangerous to their operation, Rahul. That's why they don't like you. That's why your fans love you.
Actually, some of the people, they just leave because I'm too negative for them, but maybe they should listen to the establishment of the hobby instead. That's what I tell people. But yeah, I mean, I was just thinking, you were talking about how Ranting Andy threatened you. You said that he emailed you. Like, I've heard stories, or actually I've seen this. So this one breaker, I don't know if you two have heard of it. It's Platinum Brakes. And it looks like he took a box cutter and he held it to one of his employees' like neck or something like that.
Yeah,
And
I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, you saw that, and I'm thinking like, wait, like sports cars. Some of these guys are flat out nuts.
Right.
And I thought like gold and silver people were nuts. I mean, yeah, people threaten you. That was not cool. But I think it's just much more crazier. And I could talk about other things as well. And, I've heard stories, I'm not going to mention it here, but some dudes in the industry have threatened other people. And, people look the other way. I'm like, what? This is the industry we're in? And, you just look the other way?
I don't know if you and I talked about this early on in 2020 or 19 or 21. I don't remember when we first talked about it. But I read from the comments on one video we did together where people said, this isn't like the old days. This isn't like the 1990s. I promise you, in the 1990s, there were grown men, fighting over sports cards at Kmart when Kmart was a thing, and Walmart and Pace and Shopko and all these other places, just like they were in 2020 and 21. It is the same thing, and the same thing happened. They took cards off shelves. They made you a limit on how much you could buy. When you see adult men fighting over sports cards, there's a problem. And that was exactly what it was.
Speaking of 90s insanity, people also were fighting over Beanie Babies and comic books. I remember seeing an interview and someone's like, yeah, this Superman comic's going to pay for my kids' college tuition. So that was...
Did you see that documentary, John? Have you seen that documentary about the guys? There's some documentary out there about the guys who bought all those Beanie Babies and now they can't do anything with them. I wish I could remember the name of it, but there's like this.
I've heard that story. Yeah,
they're like this, they have like $1 million in Beanie Babies or something, and they can't do anything with it. And it's almost as sad as that thing called the Bronies, the My Little Pony Bros or whatever. Have you seen this?
I've never heard of that.
Dude, look it up. Grown men do My Little Pony.
Oh wow.
Not joking, dude.
Yeah, I think the crazier part of this industry, not to mention how, the Beanie Babies, this other industry where prices collapse. There's cards that have collapsed 90% from February and March of 2021 when people were potentially like brushing, my videos off. That was the time to watch my videos, with you on, Donna, and you also on, John. And it's just insane. I think the other part, what's insane, is now all of the scams are getting exposed. Yes, people knew about scams before, but, allegedly trimmed cards are on, I think, PWCC right now. And John, your favorite sport is hockey, one of your favorite sports. It's McDavid, one of his high-end cards. I believe it's trimmed based on what I've seen in a Beckett slab versus now what's in a PSA slab. And I went to Nat Turner's, one of the lead guys at Collectors Universe that owns PSA. I went to PWCC and they're like, nothing. And I still think that card's up there. I'm like, wait, if this is a numbered card and I could determine that it's trimmed, what on earth is going on for non-trimmed cards? I mean, this is insane. And yeah, what are your thoughts, Don?
Well, you and I have talked about that off air many times. Here's the sad thing. There are people who you could tell them to their face that this is trimmed, cleaned, rigged, whatever. And the very person who did the cleaning, the rigging, the shaving, and all that, will be in business tomorrow selling some other clean shaved card to somebody else. The industry is so unregulated, and people are such Kool-Aid drinkers, they just don't want to wake up to this. But they're going to, because there is another crash coming. You see, we've seen the first crash, but the real crash, maybe 5 or 10 years out, we're not there yet. And again, that's when people have all this stuff stacked around them and they can do nothing. It's when Zion comes out and there's some scandal like Deshaun Watson had. You know, it's that with sports cards, they can literally go to zero, as you rightly know. They can just go to zero. So with the point about the shaving and all that, I don't even know sometimes why we even talk about that, because there's some people that don't care. Most people don't care. They don't even know. They don't know. They don't care. And they don't care that they don't know. And that's the audience, by the way, who keeps giving money to the snake oil salesman. And that's not your audience. Back to what I said a moment ago, you're not going to get rich telling people the truth.
Well, I have to be honest also with Zion Williamson. I know this is sort of strange, but when I saw his cards go up drastically, I didn't just think the price valuation was bid up, but I was thinking, and I'll use two players to support my theory. Is I was thinking, if he's really this good, how come he didn't take Duke to at least the Final Four? Like, if he was this good, like they said, Duke should have won the national title. And I was like, the freshman sensations I could compare him to were Carmelo Anthony, where he took the Syracuse and won the national title. And there's a guy from Kentucky, 2011, Anthony Davis. And I was like, he's not even anywhere near those guys. And so,
are you old enough to remember guys like? Are you old enough to remember guys like Penny Hardaway and Larry Johnson and all that?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I remember them. I was just thinking like
no. The reason I'm asking about those players is I can rattle off a list of players that were flaming hot, just flaming hot, in the same way that some of these guys are now, that you can't give away. You know, Grant Hill is another guy. Now, people will argue that, well, the 90s, you know, it was junk wax, but there's some rare cards from the 90s. I mean, there are still some rare stuff out there that no one cares about. That's the funny thing about sports. If you don't get to the Hall of Fame, anything that happens between day one and the end of your career, if you don't go to the Hall of Fame, there's a huge premium that comes with that, a gigantic premium. And
go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, to your point about Zion, that what he did before may be a tell for now. What he does from here on in the future will be a tell for the value of his cards going forward. And I don't see how you can live up to the valuation of his cards. I don't see any way.
Yeah.
Same with Mac Jones.
Oh, yeah. Well, Alex English, people have no idea who he was. He led the league in scoring in the 80s for the Nuggets. But
that's right. Yep.
Going back to what Don said about Penny Hardaway, just to put it in perspective for young players, you know, Penny Hardaway and Grant Hill, those two were Hall of Fame career paths, but they got injured. And that's another reason I wouldn't buy them, is you could be right. I remember Penny Hardaway was, in my opinion, ever since Magic retired, he was probably the closest thing to Magic Johnson we had. But he got injured, and his career was cut short.
Someone in the room posted about, you know, Derek Coleman and Alonzo Mourning. Yeah, I mean, these are all guys in the 90s that you cannot give away now, and they were great players.
Yeah, Derek Coleman dunked over Shaq. I think he's one of the few players to ever do so.
Right.
Yeah, who wants to buy Chris Bosh? Didn't the Heat win a couple of titles with Bosh?
Yeah, they won two, yeah.
Or Latrell Sprewell.
Well, he choked his coach.
Yeah, that was.
Do you know that Robert Horry? I think Robert Horry has been to won the most finals or something crazy like that.
7 finals, Horry. I think. And he didn't win the most. It was Bill Russell, I think, that won a ridiculous amount. 11, I think.
Steve Splenda just typed something that's keeping it real about Tim Duncan.
Which one? This one? Let's be real. It's hard to move Tim Duncan cards, and he's a GOAT. Yeah, he's amazing. I like Tim Duncan.
I think Tim Duncan's very underrated. I actually think he was the best player of his era, personally. Like, I actually think when I heard Kobe 4th and 5th, I actually thought that was – I think Duncan's way better. And I was a huge – like, I played basketball. I had to guard a guy who who's in the NBA during a game. It's the crazy guy, West. That guy was good.
Delonte West. You guarded Delonte West in high school?
Yeah, I had to guard him one game. That was not fun. So, I mean, I was not just in basketball, but I played. And like when I see this Kobe talk, like fourth best player of all time, I'm like, no way. Tim Duncan was the best of the era.
In defense of Kobe, though, I mean, he hit over 80 points in a game. Just looking back at it, I don't know how on earth you do that.
Yeah.
Even though I wasn't the biggest Kobe fan, but just looking back at it, I'm like, wow. I wish I watched more of his games.
Yeah, Tim Duncan, I mean, his style of play was always boring. It was not fun. And I remember that Phoenix Suns fight where they suspended half the Suns players, and Spurs ended up winning the title, but they wouldn't have won. I always thought that was like a dumb rule, suspending them for the playoffs. Maybe fine them a lot of money, or I don't know, but I just don't see Tim Duncan's card because he wasn't flashy.
Yeah,
here's my Tim Duncan pump, CSG9.
I will give you my some current players that ought to be warnings. For example, Ezekiel Elliott. For example, Dak Prescott. You know, I mean, these are guys. Carson Wentz. The hype around Carson Wentz was just astronomical, and you can't give these cards away. I mean, maybe you have a Dallas fan that might want an Ezekiel Elliott card, but these are cards which you could have gotten burned on real bad, and there was no bottom for some of the prices. And no, just because Ezekiel Elliott looked okay versus the Eagles, that doesn't mean anything. His cards will still suck. I mean, it really is a shame the amount of money that's getting transferred on the hype. And John said something way earlier in this call that I wanted to also say, and that is the value, the premium put into players who have done nothing yet, priced like they have. That is a huge problem. All these cards come out and they're priced. It's like a stock IPO that can only go down. There's no upside.
I don't know who's buying or why anyone would buy a Herbert card for over $1 million. There are two, and then one of them was wiped down, right? Chemical or not, whatever was done, right? That's what made the mainstream news because I constantly covered it, and then it eventually got to Darren Rovell.
Rahul.
Yeah.
Rahul, listen. If you are going to pay more money than it would cost to start a card company, hire photographers, fly Herbert out to your house, pay him to mow your yard and give you a back massage and cook you dinner, and sign about 1,000 cards on your coffee table. If you're going to spend that much money on one card, you are by definition an idiot. I don't know how to explain this to people. Herbert would come to your house. Anyone listen to me, if you disagree with me and you got $1 million, you call Justin Herbert right now. Get his agent, say, I have $1 million right now. I want him to come mow my front yard. I promise you, Justin Herbert will leave the field next Sunday, get in his Prius or whatever he drives, come to your house, wherever you are in the country, and get on it might have to be a riding mower because he didn't want to hurt himself. And he might wear goggles or something, but Justin Herbert will come to your yard. He will mow it for you and serve you dinner for $1 million. If you're spending that on a card, you're a moron.
Yeah.
And I just find it quite interesting. Before the pandemic, what were people paying for Brady cards? I mean, he won, 5 Super Bowls at that time, if I believe? No one was paying close to that, in my opinion. And now they're saying, hey, Justin Herbert, yeah, he's talented, no doubt. But, that dude's like an ankle injury away from pulling a D Rose or busting up his knee like D Rose. I remember that well in Chicago to this day.
Yeah.
Thibodeau overworked him.
Yeah.
Towards the end of the game.
Or there was that Cubs pitcher, I forget.
Kerry Wood and Mark Pryor. And Dusty Baker screwed those guys up. I remember to this day, that team in 2004 should have won the World Series, but Dusty Baker couldn't control the drama queens on that team. I mean, Sports Illustrated said that was an amazing team. That was an amazing team. They still didn't win for some reason.
I gotta laugh at some of these comments. These people keep bringing up guys from the past like Greg Jeffries and Kevin Moss.
Imagine if Greg Jeffries were a grand. Just imagine if you had social media in the 90s.
Hey, I bet you, what's his name? What was that guy who was that guy for the Reds? No, the Phillies. The guy that went to jail.
Dykstra.
I bet Dykstra. I interviewed Dykstra, and in full disclosure, he asked me to invest in his company years ago. But I interviewed that guy, and I bet you, for $1,000, I bet Lenny Dykstra would come to your house and know your yard.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that's why I always said, like, if you're gonna invest any money in this space, like my sweet spot is I'm wearing his jersey, Alexander Ovechkin. I'm not buying anything right now, but the only reason he's the only person I really spent money on is because he's already a Hall of Famer. He's the best goal scorer of all time, and he already has things that increase in value. One is the 800 goal club, which I think he's only 20 goals away. And then Gretzky's record of 891. And, he could get injured, but even if he doesn't achieve those, he's still a Hall of Famer. So, it's growth and whatever. And they're already a Hall of Famer, but if you're going to spend anything more than $50 on a card, I want someone that's either a Hall of Famer, or I did buy a Connor McDavid, but that was only one card. But
hopefully it wasn't trimmed, because I'm seeing a lot of stories of those cards being trimmed, but I don't think people care, like Don said.
Yeah. In 2019, I don't know if they were trimming them.
Oh, the people were trimming them. I have to do a video on that. But yeah, people were starting to trim back then.
To some of these guys are so hilarious in your comments, Rahul.
I haven't gone through them.
They're throwing up names like Brian Taylor. So I will just say Todd Van Poppel and Todd Marinovich. Dan McGuire is another one. There's another good one. I don't even know if you know who those names are.
Do any of your fans have any questions or anything they want us to say? I mean, I'm not the end-all be-all to this, but I'll be more happy to talk about it if they have some.
Dude, Ben McDonald, there's another good one.
Ben McDonald.
Oh, the Orioles pitcher. I remember him.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to try YouTube, because this StreamYard thing, it's not clicking the
comments. You can't see it?
Yeah. Not as much. Oh, wow. I can see it now.
Yeah, now you can see.
Oh, Ben McDonald. Yeah, I remember him.
Jake Plummer, another good one.
Yeah, Jake Plummer was good in college.
Jeff
Where did you go again? Did you go?
Billy Ripken. Oh, I actually have a card from a kid. As a kid, where it was. Wait, can you all see me?
Yeah.
All right, I was just on the YouTube. I have a Billy. I'm behind. That's why. Billy Ripken card. It's all the family tree, where it was Cal Ripken. Father was the manager, and then Cal Ripken and Billy Ripken. So. Yeah,
his air card was on his bat. During the time of the picture, it says F face on it. That's what it's. That's his air card. This is what this one comment. Billy Ripken air card.
Andre Ware. There's another. Oh, I got one. Hey, here's a name. Kajana Carter. I wonder how many people remember Kajana Carter.
He was a running back, right?
The Penn State.
Did he go to Ohio State, right?
No, I think it was Penn State.
Oh, it was Penn State? Okay. It's the Ohio State. My bad.
Tim Couch. Oh, there's a Rocket Ishmael. Oh, my goodness. See, this is the thing. We could just go through all of these players and just come up with all of these guys that were hot and then flamed out.
Actually,
how about Reggie Bush? What about Londale White? Remember that national championship game? The announcer used to always say Londale White. I remember that. Reggie Bush, Matt Leinart. The game of the century, right?
Reggie Bush.
I think that was Ohio. Whatever.
They're doing well. I saw them on a college game day show where they're full-time announcers with Brady Quinn, and I was thinking,
Brady Quinn, there's another one.
Falling off, because I was like, they put those 3 announcers on there so people can be reminded that college football used to be fun to watch, and now it's just...
Yeah. Well, Reggie Bush, actually, if you look at Reggie Bush's stats, he had 10,000 yards, all-purpose yards in his career. It was more than I thought he had. He was a good player. I liked Reggie Bush. Cade McNown, yeah. I mean,
he's, I think, a financial advisor now in California. Ex-Bear quarterback. How the hell does the Bears have, 30 quarterbacks, and Green Bay has, Favre and, Rodgers?
By the way, speaking of Rodgers, if you picked up your Rodgers PSA 10s before the start of the season, ouch.
Yeah, not good.
No, not good.
I was buying way earlier.
Aaron Rodgers, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, he has the Redskins this next week, so he should pick up a W there. If he doesn't, he should just retire.
Yeah, it's time for Jordan Love.
Yeah. I mean,
but,
I'm sorry I have to say this, but the Redskins are just... I'm a Redskins fan. They are just so atrocious. Snyder is like the worst thing to happen to sports.
So what's the deal with the blackmail? Like, Snyder said something in the news about he has dirt on people. Do you know anything about that, John, since you're in D.C.?
Oh, absolutely. He has to have. That's the only reason I think he could. The owners aren't forcing him out, because this is a guy who sues the fans on a regular basis.
What?
He sued one fan because they had this like golden seat or whatnot. It was like some really high-end seat for all the games, and you had the prepay, and you would sign like an agreement to it. But she lost her job, was living off Social Security, and said she couldn't pay it. And this person was a fan since the 1970s or 60s, and he literally sued her.
I'm sorry, John. I'm sorry. I have to interrupt. The reason I'm laughing is not at you, but someone just typed in Kurt Rambis rookie card. I'm looking for one in PSA 10. I will tell you, I bet there's not a single Kurt Rambis PSA 10 anywhere. I would put money on that. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. But...
So, anyway, he sued the fan and took him to get him to pay for everything. It was the most. And I was thinking, someone's doesn't he have PR people to tell him you shouldn't need PR for that? Lost your job.
Common sense.
Yeah, living on Social Security. And the other thing too is McLuhan, who he built the 49ers, took them to the Super Bowl in 2014. He came in, was helping build the Redskins, and this is when Kirk Cousins came in. We started getting a decent team because we had a GM, and he literally didn't like the fact that he wasn't controlling the team. So he leaks. He didn't leak stuff, but he started just throwing out rumors that he had a drinking problem and he was drinking, on scenes and whatnot. And so,
do you think there's people have dirt on Snyder, so that's why he did that? Because I'm beginning to think that, okay, sports cards rig, gold and silver, there's crazy people. What's going on, with sports teams, guys with a lot of money, these owners? There must be some hanky-panky going on.
Oh, there is.
I'm the hanky-panky guy, so
anyway,
that's what I'm thinking.
But in the DC area, it's not uncommon. I mean, you have to remember the CIA is right in the back corner. So it's not uncommon to dig up dirt, hire private investigators, people, just in case they do something. They're like, hey, we saw, let's say someone was having an affair. Be like, hey, I got this picture of you with your mistress. It's a shame if your wife would get it. So I'm sure Snyder is just the reason I sold these stories about stuff he did is he's the complete scumbag. So I'm sure that I'm willing to bet. I mean, just my opinion. He did this. There's no doubt in my mind he would do something like this. This is how he plays ball.
Hey, Rahul.
Yeah.
I got to go eat dinner. So
okay, man. But I appreciate you coming on.
I just want to leave you with this thought about the Washington Commanders. John kept calling them the Redskins. I'm with you, John. They'll always be the Redskins to me. But one of the arguments I heard about why they changed their name from the Redskins to the Commanders is that, and you'd see this online where people would say, well, how would you like it if there was a team called the Washington Caucasians? Wouldn't that make you mad? Well, I'm here to tell you the truth. If there was a team called the Anytown Caucasians, they would instantly become my favorite team. Not because I'm a white guy, no, but because that would be the most politically incorrect name of all time, and I would love it. I don't care if they win. I don't care if they lose. I would back them. I'd buy their tickets. I'd wear the jerseys. The Anytown Caucasians, that's the team I'm going to start supporting.
John, any thoughts before you want to head off?
I guess the thing, what people don't know about the Redskins is like a Native American designed their
logo, right?
Yeah, it wasn't even like they worked with a lot of them to design that and everything. So, I mean, yeah, I'll never call them the Commanders or whatnot. I wanted them to be the Hogs because that is, I don't care what anyone says, the greatest offensive line ever.
Yeah, no. You can't do that's fat shaming, John. You can't do that. That would be you can't do that. I'm just because I want to be honest about this.
Yeah.
As completely politically incorrect as the name would be, any name that is that politically incorrect, I'm going to support the team. I don't care what the name is. You know what, Rahul? We've talked about this before. I may have to make a T-shirt and a logo for the Anytown Caucasians. And next time I come on your show, I may be wearing a T-shirt that says Anytown Caucasians.
Yeah. There we go.
So how about the Skins? I don't think they would have allowed it, but I would love to see just the Redskins, but if not, the Hogs, because that would have been a tribute to the offensive line. They won 3 Super Bowls with 3 different quarterbacks and running backs. So, I mean, the results speak for themselves. They're the greatest O-line in NFL history. No other O-line could win multiple Super Bowls with a completely different quarterback and running back each time. So,
speaking of quarterbacks, did you know that Joe Theismann changed his name from Theismann to Theismann to rhyme with Heisman?
Yep, he definitely did when he was at Notre Dame. Yeah,
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's true.
Oh, I got bullets in the chat. Yes, I love that name, and that's one reason I'll never stop calling them the Redskins. They're always the Redskins, and I really wish I stopped. I kept calling the Bullets when I was a child because I hate the name the Wizards.
No,
they didn't even capture the Harry Potter run and like have like Hogwarts and stuff at their games. They like completely ignored it.
Yeah, their Wizards kind of had an Adventure Time kind of vibe to it. If you ever saw the show Adventure Time,
they would have cashed in on the Harry Potter and did it, but they didn't do it at all. So, I mean, I wish they would just change it back to the Bullets personally, or if they really wanted to do something, instead of changing the name to the Commanders, change them to the Bullets. Just call them the Bullets.
The Commanders is such an – I don't know if you've thought about this, John, but the name Commanders has such an XFL or like, Arena League. Not even arena. It doesn't ring like an NFL name. It seems like they had a lot of other good names they may have chosen from, but whoever was choosing the name said, "What's the name we can come up with that is almost as bad, maybe worse than the Guardians in baseball?" Oh, I know, the Commanders. It is literally the worst possible name you could come up with.
Here's the other thing that gets me on it. They have the W, and literally this is the Nationals. The W is the Nationals. So they literally like copy the Nationals, but instead of having this like curly W, it just goes straight.
I want it to be the Expos.
They could have done that too. That would have been funny, calling the Washington Expos, but I mean if they're going to do it, they should have just trolled them, called them like, what about the Washington lobbyist? And then literally the mascot would be someone with a briefcase full of money, and they can just have a politician being like, I wish that would have been
that would be a great name.
I like it. I like that. Now, someone in the chat said, "What about the Washington Bibles?"
The Washington what?
The Bibles.
That would be a great thing. So instead of going on the field, they can like when they're going out, they can wander like away from the field and into the stands, and then they can have like the cheerleaders direct them to the field. It's like saying, "No, you got to go there." So that would actually
maybe the Washington big guys.
Yeah. And then they can like, do some sniffing beforehand. Like,
oh boy. I think Don's frozen. You must have made him frozen after those comments, but John, before
someone in the chat, yes, the Washington Bullets was a gun issue. They did it to fight back against gun crime. Yeah, really.
Yeah, that's a comment that you saw.
So safe, yeah.
Yeah. Before I let you go, John, where can people find you?
I would say J22 Sports Report. That's my YouTube channel. I haven't been doing some videos lately just because of work and a lot of different things, but hopefully I'll get to it. It'll just be sports and entertainment. I'll try to do some card videos eventually. I don't really know too much about them, but maybe I can try to do some economic analysis or something with it. So,
yeah, for sure. That'd be helpful. And you get more views.
Yeah. So thanks for having me. And the Washington Money Washers, that's a good one.
Yeah, that's a good one. All right, man. Talk to you later.